welcome back to the 7.4 notes here. We're going, actually, the Unit 7 notes. And for today, this is February 2nd. So these are the notes for Wednesday. Oops, sorry. Wednesday, February 2nd, if you missed it all. And we'll be right in there. And we're working with writing polynomials now. So essentially, what this section is essentially going to do is essentially what it says right here. We're basically going to write the polynomials given the zeros, all right? So it's kind of the opposite of what we've been doing. We've been given polynomials, and they ask us to find the zeros. Now what they do is, and I'll even move the page forward here, they give us the zeros kind of like right here, and they ask us to find the polynomial. Now it's actually quite straightforward, to be quite honest with you. So what we really need to do is we need to put these into factors, all right? So I'll put it right over here. So we put our zeros into factors. Put them into factors, right? Now what does that mean? Well, if I can kind of demonstrate, well, so if I know that my 0 is x is 3, I know that x equals 3. And if I put it into a factor, that's basically the opposite of solving. So it's essentially I just subtract the 3 over, I get x minus 3 as one of my factors, okay? And it's basically what it is. I take whatever number, I basically take, to put it into a factor, I basically do x, whatever number this is, and then opposite the sign. So it's -2, so it's basically a 2, negative, opposite of negative turns it into a positive 2. This next factor, x, and then it's a positive 5, so I put it in as a -5 as the factor. And then honestly, from there, I multiply. Literally what I do, I multiply out my factors. So I start off, just do the x's first. And I'm going to start off basically with these two over here. Multiply those out, I get x squared plus 2x. That's for the first one. Take the -3, I get -3x minus 6. I combine my like terms. The x squared comes down. Plus 2x minus 3x gets me -x minus 6. And then from that, now I take this one and I multiply it to the x minus 5. So and then I just kind of do the same thing. Distribute that out. I get myself x cubed minus 5x squared. Take the -x, distribute that one out. I get myself -x squared plus 5x. Then I take the -6, distribute that one out. I get -6x plus 30. And then from that, I'm actually going to write it up here. I combine them up. I get x cubed. Add the -5x squared and the -x squared. I get -6x squared. The 5x and minus 6x, that gets me minus 6x. And then I add 30, that gets me plus 30. Hang on. Let me take a look at this again. -6x and then plus 5x, I think that's good. So that right there is our final solution right there. All right, so that's basically our polynomial there. All right, so again, it's essentially putting our zeros into factors and then multiplying out. All right. Now, what would happen, so to say, if we had, say, zeros that were imaginary numbers or irrational numbers, or like square roots of numbers? Well, we actually have some rules for that, and they're in the form of two theorems. All right, so again, theorems basically just like a statement that we have proof of, all right? And essentially, if a polynomial function with real coefficients and is imaginary zero of the function, then it's what we call its conjugate is a 0. So basically, what that means is, so say if I have an imaginary number, so like b times I, all right? If I know that's a 0, then basically what I already know is that the negative of that b times I is also a 0 as well. All right? And it also works vice versa. If I know that negative bi is a 0, then bi then the positive of that is as well. All right? And that same works when I'm talking about irrational numbers. And basically, most of the time when we're talking here, an irrational number is a square root number. So like say square root of 5. That's as an irrational number, all right? So most of the time we're talking about square roots of numbers that are not perfect squares. And it's the same thing. If I know that the square root, say the square root of b, and b is an irrational number and it's a 0, then I can assume that negative square root of b is a 0 as well, and then vice versa, okay? All right. So knowing that information there, and again, if you want to, first off, if you want to pause the video just to kind of get these notes written down, you can do that. But knowing this information, now we can move on to a couple more other examples here. And it's actually, I'm going to erase this, just kind of write them down here. So 4 and then square root of 6. All right, so I know those two zeros. Well, if I figure out what square root of 6 is, in fact, I'll do it on, I have my phone calculator here. I can figure out here real quick. Let's see, 6, square root of 6. That's going to give me a pretty ugly number there. So square root of 6 is irrational. All right, so I'll write it's irrational. Now, knowing that information, what I can do is, since I know that the square root of 6 is irrational, I know now that the negative square root of 6 is also a 0. All right. So instead of having 2 zeros to work with, I actually have 3 zeros to work with. Now now once I get done with that, it's essentially the same process. I'm going to put these into factors. So you got to start with this first one. It's going to be x, 4, opposite sign. That's a positive 4, so it's going to be negative 4. The next factor, even though it's a square root, it's still the same. It's still kind of the same process. X, opposite sign, so that's a positive square root. It's going to turn into negative square root of 6. And then x, opposite sign, plus, and then square root of 6. All right. Now with these when multiplying these out, I actually start with multiplying these two out first. All right, because when I do that, it actually turns out that I get a lot of stuff that cancels out, and it actually makes my life a little bit easier. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to kind of multiply like I just did before. Distribute that x out. I'm going to get myself x squared. X times positive 6 is just getting me x times square root of 6. Or you could even write 6 square root of 6x. It doesn't really matter. Then for the next one, I take the square root of 6, move it over here, distribute to these ones here. I get myself negative x times square root of 6. And then negative square root of 6 times square root of 6 gets me negative square root of 36, which everybody now should know equals just negative 6. So I'm actually going to rewrite this down here, x plus x square root of 6 minus x square root of 6 minus 6. I just basically rewrote this stuff down here. And when I go to simplify, well, my x squared stays the same and my negative 6 squares the same. But if I add the x squared of 6 and negative x squared of 6, those cancel out. And I'm left with x squared minus 6. All right? Now, I'm not done yet, even though I probably shouldn't have circled that. I apologize. Shouldn't have circled that. Now, I'm not done yet. Now, what I do is I take the remaining factor and I bring it down over here. All right? I got x minus 4. And then from there, distribute it out. I'm going to write it up here. X squared times x gets me x cubed. X squared times negative 4 gets me negative 4x squared. Then I go with the negative 6 times x. That gets me negative 6x. Oh, too far. And then negative 6 times negative 4, that gets me positive 24. And what I see from that is, well, x cubed. Well, if I add my like terms now, x cubed, well, that stays the same. Negative 4x squared, there's no other x squareds to work with, so I stay with negative 4x squared. Negative 6x stays the same, and plus 24 stays the same. And that right there is going to be my final polynomial right there, all right? All right, so again, just know that anytime that you're given an irrational number, if you're given the positive, make sure you add the negative. If you're given the negative, you add the positive of those zeros, okay? Now let's work with one more here, all right? Now this is, I'm just going to kind of erase it. The PowerPoint's a little bit weird. 2 and 3i, all right? Now I'm going to start off with a rule that we went over last semester, or something that we've kind of gone over previously in classes, that I squared equals negative 1, okay? Now we'll go over kind of what that means that helps us out a lot when we're simplifying here. Now again, I have 2 and 3i. And I know that now that now that I know that this is one of my zeros, it's imaginary, just write imag, then I know that my other zero has to be negative 3i. I know that if I have a positive 3i, I have to have a negative 3i as my zero, okay? That doesn't work for regular numbers like 2 or, rational numbers like, 2. It only works for imaginary or irrational numbers. But then, once I figure out that, then from there, I just start to simplify, all right? Or do my factors. So x minus 2, this is a positive 2, so it's x opposite sign 2, x minus 2. For this one, this is a positive 3i, so it's going to be x minus 3i. And then for this one, it's x plus 3i, because again, it's the opposite sign for there, all right? And just like I did with actually, I'm going to erase some of this and kind of move it over here, give myself a little bit more room here. So I got x minus 2, x minus 3i, and then x plus 3i. And just like I did with the square roots in the last problem, I'm going to take essentially these two first, and I'm going to simplify those ones out first, all right? If you do it the other way around, where if you take like the negative x minus 2 or x minus 3i, simplify that one out, it's going to get a little ugly. So that's why I say I recommend sticking with these ones first, all right? So I start with these ones. I take it down here, x minus 3i, x plus 3i. I'm going to multiply those out. X times x, that gets me x squared. Now x times 3i, well, that's basically just 3ix, all right? Again, I can't simplify this I and this x because they're different letters, different variables. Well, technically, or I is not a variable, x is. But since that's there, all I do is just rewrite it like this. So it's the same thing if I do negative 3i times x. That just gets me negative 3ix there, all right? And then I take this negative 3i, multiply it by positive 3i. Now I'm going to take this over here. I'm going to rewrite this one over here. That's positive. Remember, you're not only multiplying the 3's out front, negative 3 times positive 3, they get you negative 9, but you're also multiplying the i's as well. So remember, I times I gets you I squared. So instead of just not negative 9i, it's negative 9i squared, all right? Now, this is where we use this rule up here to actually simplify it out a little bit further. What I know is that with this I squared, I know that I can put in a negative 1 there. So I'm just going to so instead of having the I squared, I'm going to erase that, just do negative 1. So it turns into negative 9 times negative 1, which I also know is a positive 9, all right? So I'm actually just going to rewrite this over here now. I'm just going to kind of rewrite this stuff. So plus 3ix minus 3ix plus 9, all right? Because again, and really all you need to know, and I can even rewrite it over here. So say like you got negative 9i squared. All you really need to do is get rid of the I squared and flip the sign. That's really all you need to do to change that, all right? And then from there, let's go ahead and simplify out. Now, plus 3ix minus 3ix, all right? It's basically the same number out front in front of my x, the same number out front minus the same number out front of my x. Those cancel out, all right? I'm left with x squared plus 9, all right? Now, as I did before, I'm going to take this final factor, x minus 2, and I'm going to bring it down here. And from there, I'm going to simplify it out. Do the x squared to the x squared to the negative 2. I'm going to write that over here. I get myself x to the third power minus 2x squared. And I take the 9, simplify that one out. That gets me positive 9x, positive 9x squared, positive 9x minus 18. And when I simplify those out, I should get, just rewrite my equation, x cubed minus 2x squared plus 9x minus 18, all right? All right. So that is solving or finding polynomials given zeros. Again, all you really need to do is take your zeros, put them into factors, and multiply. That's really all there is to it. All right. Just make sure you remember that if you have imaginary or irrational numbers, or make sure you have both positive and negative numbers. That's all I have for this video. Keep an eye out for further videos. Thank you.